Hi, I'm Ella and I'm here with Festival of Nature at Leigh Woods in Bristol, the National Trust site. We're here today to talk to Carol and Janine about the work they do at the site. We're now joined with Carol. Could you tell us a little bit about your role here?
Yeah, sure. So I'm lead ranger for the National Trust for the Bristol portfolio, and our two big sites are Leigh Woods and Tintsfield, but we've also got smaller sites such as Cadbury Camp, Fayland, Redcliffe Bay and places like that.
Oh, cool. So could you tell us about the history of the site here at Leigh Woods?
Yeah, sure. So in 1909, 30 hectares here was given to the Trust by George Wills to sort of look after it forever and to protect it for people to enjoy, but also to protect the nature here because there's quite a lot of special things here. And then after a few years after that, we were given more and more until we got to the 65 hectares we've got today. So more recent history here as more of an industrial nature. There was mining here, they were mining for quartz and things like that, and celestine. And then obviously we come to today where we're managing it purely for nature. The site is an NNR, National Nature Reserve, a triple SI, which is a site of special scientific interest, and an SAC, which is a special area of conservation. So really, really important, right on the edge of a big city, Bristol, lots of visitors, but lots and lots of really rare things here. So we've got lots of endemic species here, which means they're only found here and nowhere else. Like the Bristol onion, the Bristol rock cress, and lots of species of white bean. So super, super special. And obviously we're now sort of protecting it sort of forever for everyone. The most northerly part is ancient woodlands. So we've got big standards, so big tall oak trees and yews and things like that, and then lots of hazel coppice. And on this side, so this side of the parish wall, which you'll see when we go around, was historically wood pasture, so really lovely and grassy like this, lots of trees dotted around and animals grazing, so the animals keeping the grass down. So about 12 years ago now, we tried to start reverting it back to the wood pasture that was, because it had wooded over. There was lots and lots of particularly ash trees everywhere. So we've been slowly felling things over the years, reintroducing grazing again, and now we're just sort of managing it for that really, and sort of focusing on our real key species here.
Thank you, Carol. That's really interesting to hear about the history of the site. And when I'm walking around, because I've always loved walking around Leigh Woods, I can definitely see it. I can see the way that the landscape is, and I can imagine what you've shared with us right now. So that's really interesting. Could you tell us about the wildlife and what we should be looking out for this time of year?
Yeah, of course. It might be easier if I show you actually.
Brilliant, that'd be great. Carol, why have you taken us here?
Okay, so as you can see behind us, we've got one of our lovely veteran trees. So at Leigh Woods, we've got 390 of them all together. This one's particularly lovely. It's actually called Nessie, because if you look closely, you can see something that looks like the Loch Ness Monster in it. Lots of the work we do at Leigh Woods is protecting these, and as part of that, you open up around them. And then as you can see, you get lots and lots of understory growing. In other bits where we haven't opened up and let light in, the ground can be quite barren. And in all this undergrowth, we get all the nice wildflowers and ancient woodland flowers that you get here. So we get bluebells and celandine, which is bright yellow, wood anemones, which is a lovely white colour. So that's sort of a bit about the flora that's here. And then we've got a pond here as well. I actually saw a newt in it yesterday, which is quite rare because it completely dries out in the summer. Other things we've got here, so if you come here at dusk or at night time, you'll sometimes see the bats here. We've got 7 species of bat. They'll be swooping down on the meadows. It's called gleaning, where they kind of come down and catch insects. And you'll hear the tawny owls talking to each other. So the twit and then the too, which is the response. It's not just one bird doing that, it's actually 2. So yeah, it's a different place at night time. Things are more likely to come out. You know, we've got badgers here, we've got foxes here, we've got sort of other wildlife here that you would never really see during the daytime. We've also got dormice nesting here, and we've been monitoring them for the last 12 years now. So we've got a good population here, and that's one of my favourite things to do. Also at this time of year, we start doing our butterfly transects. So walking a set route and recording which butterflies we see.
That's so incredible, Carol. When did you learn all of this? How did you learn all of this?
Well, basically every day you learn more. There'll be general species that you'll have in different environments. So in this type of woodland, you'll have certain things, or at different types of grassland, you'll have certain things that you're sort of looking for. But also we've got all the endemic species here. So until I worked here, I'd never seen them before. I had no idea about them. So yeah, you're just constantly learning, and the team that we've got, everyone has a different sort of specialism, and we learn from each other constantly. So yeah, I mean, there's so many different things to learn about, and we're all hoping that by the time we, you know, get a few more years, you know, a couple more decades in us, we will be, you know, really expertise in everything. But there's so much to learn about, yeah, which is wonderful.
I can imagine that. And for people who maybe don't know how to start learning, what would you suggest if they come to Leigh Woods and they want to learn more about wildlife?
I mean, the simple thing to do is just to be out in it, look at it, you know, and just spend time in nature. You know, you see things, you pick up on things. You'll see also not just learn about what things are here, but what they do. You know, there's different animals here have different traits, and that's always quite nice to see. You know, we've got things like nuthatches and tree creepers that will stick to the trees and will just, you know, run up and down the trees and things like that. And you know, having a bit of time basically and being sort of peaceful in nature is the way to do it. And then there's lots of good things. There's lots of apps on phones and things as well. So that's really handy for identifying different wildflowers and things. You know, you can literally just take a photo these days and it'll tell you what it is. So it's quite easy now in some ways and doesn't cost anything. You know, it's pretty good.
Brilliant, thank you. I'd love to see some more of the site.
Cool, let's go.
Carol, as visitors, what can we do to protect this beautiful space?
So number of things. One, stick to paths. So it's been incredibly muddy here, as any visitors will have known. So yeah, wear your wellies in the wetter months, because the erosion that people sort of cause by going off paths means we have to end up building things like this dead hedge here, because everybody was sort of going around the back, and we're trying to keep everybody on the paths so we don't damage sort of what's to the side of the paths. Fires are a big no-no here, and that's sort of any form of fire really. So even sort of raised fires, it sort of just gives the impression that fires are okay, and they're really not. We've had sort of incidents in the past where trees have been burnt down and things have been damaged. And you know, even if you just have a fire on the ground itself, that heats up the ground. You can imagine there's tree roots everywhere here. The whole of the underneath here is just tree roots, and that heating of the tree roots basically kills them, and it will in turn kill the tree. So even if you find a little glade, it's still not okay to have a fire here. So that's quite a big one really. Also mountain bikers. So we've got the set mountain bike routes. It's predominantly on the Forestry England side. It sort of skirts across our area, goes onto there. So if you can stick to the mountain bike routes as well. Lots of people like to make their own paths and stuff, but again, it does just destroy the habitat that we've got here. And especially sort of if people are going around the larger trees, you know, that compaction of the tree roots, it does kill the trees. And like I said before, we've got all these incredible, really old trees here, and they're really special. So that's quite a big one. And then lastly, dogs on leads is really important. I mean, there's, you know, we've got things nesting on the ground. We've got the birds and the dormice. Like I said before, so you'll have fawns in the longer grass, and they will not move. You know, the mum tells them to sit still, and they will sit still. And you know, we do unfortunately have animals that get killed here sort of quite regularly, whether it's squirrels or deer or birds. So we need to protect all of it. It's all special. So yeah, that's a big one really. So dogs on leads is much appreciated.
It's amazing that together we're creating a space that's welcoming for all wildlife and all people. Could you tell us more about the role of visitors over the years?
I tell you what, why don't you go and meet my colleague Janine? She's just round the corner on the hill fort, and she'll be able to tell you all about that.
Thank you.
No worries.
So nice to meet you, Carol.
You too. Have a good day.
Hello, Janine. You're the National Trust Area Ranger for here, aren't you?
I am, yes.
So Carol told me that you're the person to speak to about visitor numbers.
So yeah, Leigh Woods being so close to a major city, to Bristol, you know, we've always had very high visitor numbers. It's a wonderful resource for people to come over to the site to immerse themselves in such a beautiful green space. So yeah, but over the years, steadily more and more and more. But last year, being such a special and unique year, we went from 350,000 visitors to 800,000 last year. So which has had an intense impact on the site. It's tailing off slightly now, but obviously the implications of that have been quite big.
What physical changes have there been?
So just from the increased amount of visitor footfall, obviously this is a really great viewpoint. It's a real focal point for people's visits here. If you look down to the ground around you, it used to be fully grass. You know, so the implications of the muddy winter we had as well, the erosion and the compaction means that we no longer have that sort of grassland meadow habitat, which, you know, we spend so much of our time. it's kind of what we are about, you know, managing habitats, improving habitats. So, you know, it's a priority calcareous grassland here, which we now see as a bit of a bare sort of desert in places. So that's one of the main physical impacts. Also, infrastructure, so gates, you know, we're doing a lot of repairs on our fence line and our gates now where they've been opened and closed 800,000 times. So, I mean, it's part of what we do, but, you know, we just have seen that, you know, that wear and tear on the site, very much so. And then obviously disturbance to wildlife, you know, it's not quite as tangible to measure that. But, you know, with 800,000 visitors, there is going to be an impact on the animals that make this place their home.
And this is why it's so important that when we come here as visitors, we leave no trace and we're sensitive to the local wildlife and we respect that it's their home. So could you tell us a little bit more about, over the recent years, the changes to the site, now that you've told us about last year?
We manage the woodlands here, and as my colleague Carol talked before about us managing our wood pasture, so a lot of this area, particularly on the hill fort round here, has become much more of an open habitat, lots of grassland, you know, our beautiful standard trees and scrubby areas. So that's changed a lot for local visitors over the past sort of 10-15 years. Obviously as well, we have our cattle on site, you know, and in 2009, I think for a lot of people suddenly seeing a gorgeous herd of Devonshire red cattle on site is very different, and it is very different for quite an urban site, so to speak. So that's a change. We have quite big issues now with ash dieback, which is going to have an impact on how the woodlands look and the trees that are actually within that make up our woodlands. So like across the whole of the UK, Leigh Woods has ash dieback. A lot of our trees are dying and deteriorating. So, you know, there'll be gaps in what could have been more of a denser woodland. We've actually done quite a lot of work of felling some of those dangerous ash trees, particularly in high usage areas where visitors are. So we have one of the most important nationally, if not internationally, collections of veteran trees on site, similar to the one that you were near to when you were chatting to Carol. In 2016, we decided that we needed to really get an idea of how many we've got and what condition they're in. So we surveyed them in 2016. We have 390 veteran oaks. We've got yew trees and lime coppices. So we have to now look after those trees to sort of extend their life for as long as possible. Our veteran trees are such important ecosystems of their own. So we have a sort of duty of care to make sure that they last for as long as they can. So you'll often see through the woods sort of glades of vegetation clearance that we've done around some of those trees to get more light into them, to help with their epicoric growth and just allow them to sort of be strong ancient trees of the future. This is an ongoing project that we're even doing now. So we just go back year after year, carrying out our sort of management of them.
Thank you so much, Janine, for showing us about the woods and for telling us about the incredible work that you, Carol, and your team do to protect the site.
No worries at all. Thanks for visiting.
Thank you.
Oh.